Hi, I'm Ignacy. I'm a Polish student working in the Autumn Lab this summer on the project titled Adaptive Strategies for Overcoming Persistent Agent Failures in Distributed Learning. My supervisors for this project are Dr. Nick Gesolfi, Dr. Kyle Miller, and Dr. Artur Dubrawski. Let me start by introducing the distributed learning setting with a practical scenario. You can imagine having a bunch of hospitals scattered across several cities in the US, where each of them is tasked with a classification of a disease. It can be, for example, COVID during pandemic. Each facility deals with distinct characteristics of data because they have these different populations in their cities. Probably each of the facilities has different knowledge that is unique to them that could also probably help other hospitals to classify the disease better. However, in medical settings, it is strictly prohibited to share the data because of the privacy laws. However, it is possible to share the models. And in this distributed learning, we exploit this paradigm of model sharing in order to learn from others and also globally, so system-wide, converge to a well-performing model that is better than any other local model alone. Unfortunately, distributed learning also comes with a bunch of challenges. For example, if a communication disruption happens so that one of the agents goes offline, then we probably will lose a lot of the performance that we would have if the agent was still in place. Also, you can imagine that because of the hospitals having different characteristics of data, they also have different class and data imbalances. So the data is non-iid, so it doesn't come from the same data generating process. This is a very big problem in distributed learning as it makes it much harder to converge to the same model. So the main objective of my project was to understand what happens to the distributed optimization process when one of the agents is destroyed. We also wanted to know whether we could utilize their knowledge in the further optimization despite the fact of losing their data. So we derived the three main goals for this project. The first one is analyzing the resilience of distributed optimization algorithms to challenging environments such as non-iid data or class imbalance. We also wanted to show that severe communication disruption indeed has a very big negative impact on distributed learning and the final model performance. Finally, we also want to propose a patching method that aims to boost the final performance of the model in order to still converge to a well-performing model despite losing one of the agents. So this approach I call a model-inversion strategy, where our goal is to take the latest model we got from the destroyed agent and perform a model inversion attack in order to extract data points that resemble the true training data points that this model used for its optimization. Thanks to that, we want to have a new data set that we would be able to use to redeploy the agent with the new data set, with their latest model, and let them continue optimizing in the entire system in order to recoup a bunch of performance. Before I introduce the method, I need to make a couple assumptions. The first assumption is that each agent was optimizing its model via gradient descent. The other assumption is that the model has converged to a stationary point. What does it mean is that the gradient with respect to model parameters on the loss function with a fixed data set, so training data, is zero. It doesn't necessarily mean that also the value of the loss function is zero. It's just a stationary point, so it can be a local minima, it can be a plateau, or it can also potentially be a global minimum. Now let me introduce the model inversion attack. We want to optimize synthetic random data points in order to make them resemble the true training data points. We exploit the assumption that the gradient with respect to model parameters on the training dataset was zero, and we replace the training dataset with those random data points. Now the gradient with respect to parameters on those new data points is not zero, and we can try to drive it down. However, instead of calculating the gradient with respect to model parameters as you would do it normally when you optimize the model, instead you calculate it with respect to data, so that you actually move the data to regions in the domain that will minimize the loss function and in turn the gradient. Here on the right side you can see how the optimization process. As you were able to observe, initially all the data points are scattered randomly across the domain, and after the optimization, they move towards the true training data points. So let's talk about the results now. We have two data sets, iris and wine. We have three distributed optimization algorithms, DFAM, DJAM, and FSR. And for each of them, we run experiments across 4 different scenarios. The first scenario is that no agent was dropped from the system, meaning that this is just a normal optimization procedure with no interruptions. The next one is the last copy scenario, where the agent was dropped and all the other agents are still regularizing to that dropped agent via using the stale copy of their model. The next one is forget, which basically means that after the agent was dropped, all the other agents also drop their copies of that lost agent in order to not regularize to them any further. And the final one is our proposed methods of model inversion attack. As we can see, the model inversion attack performs pretty well across all the settings except the DFAM. I will explain it in a moment, but now I want to show you the different settings that we also have. So this one is the IID setting, where all the data comes from the same data generation process. So these are basically samples of the same data distributions. Here we have non-iid data distributions, so that the data is distributed in different ways on different agents. And here we can see that our introduce method actually gains a lot of performance in those more difficult scenarios. This is even more strengthened in the extreme imbalance setting, where each of the agents have a different class that is unique to this agent. It means that in the extreme imbalance you have a very unique knowledge for each agent, and as you can see, our method helps very much in this scenario to recoup some performance, basically because of us being able to still preserve some of this knowledge that would have been lost otherwise if we had done nothing. For DFAM, as you can see, our method is not performing the best, and actually the best performing scenario is a forget scenario. It's not the baseline one. And this is because DFAM is a decentralized federated averaging algorithm, and federated learning in general is known to not work well when the data is non-iid. Therefore, forgetting an agent makes the entire problem a bit easier for them. Here you have convergence plots, where in distributed learning is also important to converge as fast as possible to the highest accuracy. So this is kind of like a problem where you have to converge fast and also reach high accuracy. And as you can see, our agent reconstruction method performs very well also over communication rounds and is closest to the baseline, which is a blue line of no agent drop. Going towards the end, there are several questions that remain open, and they include: what is the impact of different communication graphs on system performance? Also, how does the approximation errors for the introduced epsilon influence the results? Are the extracted data points similar to the training data, and if so, to what extent? So we also want to understand maybe the privacy issues, as well as whether our approximation of the training dataset is actually correct. If you are interested, you can go here, scan this QR code to go to my project website. You can also click the link if you have access to this presentation, or just type this into your search bar in your browser. And thank you.